On my way home from that mobocratic synod of New York, 1838, I stopped a few days in Philadelphia. I discovered that young Mr. Wilson, the doctor's son, and his congregation were not harmonious. Two of the most influential members of Reverend James M. Wilson's congregation, as I then supposed, and as I yet believe, dealt with me to give them a grant. They would forthwith ask of Presbytery a disjunction from their present pastor. One of those men walked with me on the streets of the city for a considerable time, endeavoring to bring me into compliance with their wishes. At length he became so importunate that I had to use sharpness, showing him the irregularity of their method of procedure, especially this clandestine manner of it. At this he felt cut, ceased to urge, and never afterward manifested his former cordiality. Because this may seem to some an incredible temptation to ambition, although I give not the person's name, he is yet alive, and he can vouch for the truth of this statement. When, in the year 1864, I visited my native country a second time, several of the senior ministers of the Eastern Reformed Presbyterian Synod had been recently removed by death. Paul, Alexander, and C. Houston, Reverend Jacob Alexander, had deserted that body, going over to the Free Church of Scotland. The residuary ministers were few and inexperienced. The congregation at Waterside, Derry, was vacant. On my former visit in 1853, I had preached in several of their congregations, and I was approached with a view to settlement in the place above mentioned, quote, as my age and experience were much needed among their young ministers, unquote. Such was the argument used to prevail with me on that occasion. Of course, I could not identify with that party in their position. Also in Scotland the same year, the Reformed Presbyterian Synod having been divided only the year before, and the large majority having relinquished the Church's position preparatory to going into the Free Church, only a small minority were left. I had preached at Newton Stewart, and in Glasgow. Some warm friends expressed an earnest desire that I would give encouragement with a view to my settlement in Paisley, but, of course, I could not identify with that minority while in organic fellowship with those from whom I had been long separated on principle. Besides, from all I saw of the different parties on the other side of the Atlantic, I had no desire to locate in any of the British Isles. From all I could learn by personal observation and social intercourse among the different parties on both sides of the Channel, the severed fragments of the one mother church of my youth were no more intelligent or faithful than similar parties in America. Believing that the Church of Christ is one by her divine constitution, and that she exists for the conservation and propagation of divine truth, to the honor of her King and the communion of his loyal subjects, the chief aim of my public life has been to promote these desirable objects, which I could not do by any zealous or ambitious exertions to effect a great aggregation of conflicting elements. Since the revolt of the 10 tribes from the house of David, it has been the policy of the majority to charge the minority as, quote, separatists, schismatics, rending the bowels of their mother, unquote, etc. So apostate Rome charges all Protestants as, quote, heretics and schismatics, unquote. She is the chief advocate for union with her, and this is the cry of all her daughters, and on similar ground, at the sacrifice of divine truth. All martyrs and confessors have preferred truth to numbers, worldly honors, and wealth. Christ's direction is, quote, buy the truth at any cost, and sell it not for any consideration. The Lord, knowing our propensity to imitate the example of others, especially a popular example, at an early period of our history, gave a solemn charge to each of us, quote, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, unquote. Exodus 23, verse 2. To sacrifice the truth of God for the sake of union is a great evil, counteracting one of the ends for which the church exists. 1 Timothy 3, verse 15. Finally, on this charge of, quote, disappointed ambition, unquote, as within the first year of my ministry, I was tempted to change my ecclesiastical relations by an offer of exactly 5 times larger salary than was promised by my congregation. So, near the end of a long life in ministry, on my settlement in Philadelphia, a whisper soon reached my ear that one of the most influential elders of the United Presbyterian Church, who occasionally attended our worship, had said, quote, if Mr. Steele would only join us, I believe he would soon have the largest congregation of our church in this city, unquote. It has been said, and I believe it is a true saying, that popularity is a greater temptation than persecution. And now, again, in view of the foregoing statements as a part of my past experience, the reader is left to judge whether the accusations be true, or whether they look like, quote, the reproaches of Christ, unquote.